Cross scholarship player. Chris, also known as Mo by his family and friends, has also earned an athletic scholarship in football, and he's a logistics expert. Upon Billy's graduation, he went to work for SOBE, as we all know, that his dad was one of the co-founders of. Both Billy and Chris were instrumental in successfully achieving a marketing strategy known as guerrilla marketing, which is a combination of local grassroots marketing and free giveaways of paraphernalia, which would stamp the brand name on local hotspots. Once SOBE was sold, Bill Sr. decided that he wanted to run a business with his sons, not just employees. He went through 7 to 10 different ideas before recognizing an opportunity for healthy and organic dog and cat food. Leveraging their strengths in marketing and distribution channels, they started Blue Buffalo Dog and Cat Food with 1 employee and 500 square feet of office space. Now the Buff has over 150 products, and it sells hundreds of millions of dollars of product annually. The Buff now has multiple employees and has moved to new facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Blue Buffalo team. Thank you.
The fourth member that's sitting there is John Gagliardi.
Johnny Gags.
And Gags was not only an All-American in college, but an All-Pro with our Lizards, and then got some experience working at SOBE, and then decided to go on his own. And he's been coming up here a couple of times, and each time he comes up here, we threw some great ideas at him, so we turned around and sold this company for millions of dollars. The Gags.
They're going to go first.
Did you want to score? You want to score the other one, Bill? Are you going to score the other one? You want to just critique the other one real fast as far as the.
I took notes. Go ahead. Yes. I think knowing the Jewish market in New York a little bit. New York is the right place for this company.
The fact that you dated so many Jewish girls doesn't make me know.
You can't, like, New York is the spot. And I think you really, if it was me, I think you need to somehow make matzah or that brand cool. How do you make it cool? So that the young, Jewish kids want to get behind it, young Italian kids, whatever. How do you make it cool? And that's like the big thing. So you got to make it cool. I was thinking, who are the Jewish influencers in New York? The Knicks players are huge. The rapper Maziahu, whatever his name is. Yeah, he's huge. They follow. I have friends who have Jewish kids. They follow. You got to see who they follow. I think you maybe get a celebrity behind it, and that's like maybe an equity stake. You don't pay the dude. We give him some equity. Tell him, there's going to be an exit one day. I think you need a celebrity that legitimizes the brand. Another thing is social media. That's great. What are we telling them with social media? I think what we're telling them is that, this person's behind it. This is cool. The message, you have to have a constant message when you're doing the whole bottom social media thing, whatever. I also think another way to make it cool in the tri-state area is doing something like, decorating a Hampton Jitney. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's the buses that go through the Hamptons back to New York City, and all the top brands. They start with Avion, like tequila in the summer, or Zico. They all, promote their brands, and these are all the influencers. They're going out to the Hamptons on the weekend. They're in New York City, and everyone sees the jitneys. Straight would make a statement saying, we're here, we're not going anywhere, and we're cool too. And we got Maziahu, whoever this guy is, or this Knicks player, who uses our brand and promotes it. I think those two things would, legitimize the brand. Right now it's a dead brand. I remember this brand when I was a little kid. My parents we had matzah once in a while, but no one knows what it is, right? No one knows what straight is. You got to make it cool again. You got to, reinvent the brand. And those are the ways I think you do it. So these guys are what I learned about the stuff from. So let's hear from the experts.
Is all the straights business in New York now, or most of it?
Yeah, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, but mostly New York.
Because some of the stuff that was mentioned before about going on these cooking shows and trying to get matzah as a healthy food, some of this stuff comes together. Because these cooking shows are looking for content like crazy. I mean, there's so much on TV these days, so many little spin-off channels. And I mean, you could get a personality chef slash celebrity hostess, if you will, doing some cooking. And Italian food has gone crazy. You get Jake Steinfeld, right? Jake. But, you know, I mean, you could do a really, I think, amusing cooking show. Get it on the Food Network, because the Food Network is always looking for programming. And you can really start to spread the name of food. And there's some of the other stuff that made a lot of sense. And you know, the hummus piece is part of it. I think is an overall bigger issue. And once you're doing that, though, and you got the Food Network, then you go the social media route as well. I mean, social media you can overlay on anything else you're going to do. And me, it's you want to get a little more national as well and try and spin it out a little further than just 3 big cities if you can. And I think there's certainly a lot of ways to do that these days. So that was some good ideas. All right. That's so good. Go forward. Aha. Okay. I will just run you through a quick look at SOBE because it was 6 years from when the idea first came to us, and then we sold it after that. Back in 1995, I had just started an advertising agency. As somebody mentioned, that was my background in advertising. I started my own agency. And a couple weeks after I started, an old friend of mine came in, and he had worked at Arizona Iced Tea. He had been fired, but he had an idea for a beverage, and his idea was South Beach beverages. And back then, destination-based beverages were kind of hot. It was Nantucket Nectars, it was clearly Canadian, it was Arizona, you know, some with a destination, and it was pretty good. And South Beach was where a lot was going on, with some pretty young people, and it was an interesting crowd down there. And so his idea, when he came to see me, and it was a white paper that he had, was let's put out this brand called South Beach. And we designed a package for him. I had the advertising agency, we had the creative resources there. We designed a package and came up with some, I'd say, some fairly lame ideas on what the product was. They were just really then teas and or fruit drinks. And it was stuff like Key Largo lemonade and
Boca Berry grape.
you know, which was kind of maybe amusing to the person who thought of it, but it was just total bullshit to anybody else out there. Nobody really cared. We got 2 distributors to test this thing, and we packaged it, and we were producing it in the SOBE brewery. They were co-packing it for us. And we had a distributor in Miami, we had a distributor in New York. Went in and got it on the shelf in the summer of '96, and you know, we didn't sell hardly any. I mean, there was nothing going on. In the interim, we had raised a couple $1 million, and it was totally a friends and family raise. You know, anybody could put any amount of money in. We were interested in it, but the thing really sucked, and the distributors didn't want us back again. And we were basically out of business at that point in time when we finished the summer of '96. And so before going out of business, we were just looking at the rest of the beverage category, because when you're starting any business, the good thing to do is steal an idea and take it and do something with it. And one of our competitors, Arizona Iced Tea, where my old friend had worked, they had one of their flavors, a ginseng tea, which was just going off the chart. It was in a blue bottle, it was kind of cool. And that brand, that particular brand of tea was just selling like crazy for those guys. So what we did was we took a look at our concept again, and we decided we can't go back with South Beach beverages because that had failed terribly. It was South Beach on the label. We decided to shorten that name to SOBE, which if you live down there, that means South Beach anyway, and that's how they refer to South Beach, but it's certainly an easier name. We decided just to focus on the lizard, because what the hell? It was about as good as that in terms of reasoning. The lizard was an interesting focal point. We'd had a whole lot of other Art Deco stuff in the packages, but we decided to focus on the lizard. And we came up with a black tea, and instead of just having ginkgo in it, we put in also some ginseng and guarana, I believe. So it was our 3G tea is what we called that. And this was at the end of the summer, and there was a big beverage conference going on in Houston, an Interbev conference, where, you know, all the buyers come in.
Big trade show.
And so what we did was we had a van that had a couple lizards on the side, painted big. And Billy and I took the van. Chris was then still in college, so he couldn't get involved in this exciting event. But Billy and I took the van from Connecticut, drove down to Houston, Texas. And as we stopped along the way, people would say, "You got reptiles in that van?" And stuff like that as you got further south. And in any event, we got down there. We had the worst booth in the entire trade show in the mammoth hall. We were way the hell back. But we did have a lizard that we hung from the ceiling, and we had a little basketball hoop set up, and we said, "Come on, drain the lizard, and shoot this basketball, drain the lizard, and you can win a t-shirt." And we built our booth out of cases, because we didn't have anything else for the booth. We didn't have anything made up. I gave you one table like this. Was all we had, so we built our booth, and we won the beverage of the show, which was incredible. And we were really hot. We had people coming up to us. We sold more on that show than we had sold the entire year. And all of a sudden, SOBE started to get hot. And this is where you can either stay with that one little black tea thing, but we decided, geez, let's really blow this thing out while we can. And so we immediately came up with a bunch of other teas that were 3G teas, green tea. We came up with some other beverages that Billy will talk about a little bit later. But we also thought that with all of our products, let's put in some supplements, some herbs. This was just when that little revolution was starting. Prior to that, you know, the people who use ginseng and all these weird supplements were considered a little bit flaky. And at that point in time, we were just coming mainstream. And so everything we did was, let's make a beverage, let's throw some herbs in it. It was as easy as reading a few magazines, seeing what herb was hot, and just deciding to throw it in. And talk about developing a market segment. When we would go out to distributors, which we'll talk about a little bit later. God bless you. They want to know what's different about your product. And the big leader out there at this point in time in natural beverages was Snapple. And Snapple was nothing bad for you, really. All the evil stuff has been taken out. And so what we did was we came in and said, well, that's only part of it. I mean, you can pull all the bad stuff out, but we did that and we put a lot of good stuff in. And so we've got a new category called healthy refreshment. And if you don't have SOBE, you don't have a healthy refreshment beverage in your stable. Because you've always got to give people a reason why they're going to take this thing on. I think you're like somebody else. I mean, that's what's out of their ass. So you clearly don't want to do that. So we formed this healthy refreshment category, and we just started to pump it up ourselves and talk about it. Everything we published, everything we send out to the press, and healthy refreshment in it. Unfortunately, at that point in time, we were all ready to go now with this new line, but we had spent the $2 million that we raised already the first time. And when you have to go around for a second raising of funds, if you failed the first time, it really sucks. It is truly hard to get people to part with their money a second time. So a bunch of us had to actually pledge our houses to the bank at that point in time and not tell our wives or anything like that, because they could have been severely pissed at that. But in any event, as an entrepreneur, there always comes a time, unless you have just a ton of dough, where you got to risk it. So in any event, we introduced SOBE, and all these beverages in the spring of '97, and it just went like crazy. It went from nothing to, in 3 years, $200 million in sales. And we raised some more money, and it was easy to raise money. As soon as things start going, people want to jump in. So you can keep cutting your business and cutting your business in littler segments to sell in, because you don't want to dilute yourself, clearly. We did that, and then in January of 2001, Pepsi came in and gave us $370 cash for the company. And that got us on the Blue Buffalo, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. And I'll let the boys tell you a little bit more about what we did. But there were really two segments of people in this business. Myself, I qualified as an old guy, then, I don't know what I qualify as now. Dead, possibly, or close to death. But our goal was three things: raise money, and you basically get it from your friends who had done well out there, because we didn't want venture capital people involved. Venture capital people can be helpful sometimes. I generally hate them because they basically want to own your company and you know, bring their expertise to the board, and they're generally full of shit. But the old guys raise the money, set strategies for the company, and basically operate the company, make sure nothing fell out of bed. But the young guys, and we had Billy as our marketing VP, and he was, I don't know, then 20-something, 25 in there. And those guys, he just hired guys who didn't know anything about the beverage business, because we didn't want anybody to say, hey, we tried this before at Pepsi and it didn't work, because it was just totally irrelevant to what we were trying to do. So the young guys came in, they studied the products, they worked on the packaging, the product naming. We did everything with my agency, which was virtually in-house at that point in time. They came up with the marketing vehicles, all the design work, and so it was just that little structure where we said, hey, who can best develop products and market them than our target audience, which was, you know, 18 to 24 males at that point in time. So that was kind of where we were, and Billy will take you through some of this other stuff.
So we had, I would say, a fairly simple brand concept, but one that we had to execute on, I think, in order to achieve the success that we were all hoping for. And when we look at beverages, no matter, at least from our perspective, what everyone says, the product's got to taste good, especially when you're selling in up and down the street accounts like gas marts, delis, pizza parlors, those places. Everyone likes to feel like they're doing something good for their body. But if the stuff tastes horrible, they're not going to buy it again. So number one was we got to make products that taste good, or else we're not going to have success. Number two, as John was talking about earlier, we had to have a point of difference. So we had to have some sort of functional benefit, be it real or perceived. That was important. And from there, we took the functional benefits and or supplements that we added to our products and actually named our products by the functions that those ingredients were supposedly going to perform for you. So I think we were the first brand to come out with products such as energy, power, wisdom, you know, all that kind of stuff, where I don't think anybody really knew what that tasted like or what that meant, other than it looked maybe pretty cool and sounded interesting. Lizard imagery, that really was the only component, I would say, that stuck with us after our unfortunate South Beach learning experience, but we did learn something from it. Drain the Lizard was a big slogan we used at multiple levels. I don't know if you guys have ever bought a SOBE bottle when it actually was a glass bottle. And we had 1 billion SKUs, but we had all those silly under-the-cap slogans that were primarily driven by lizards and or lizard-type sayings. But that gave us an image. It gave us something that none of the other brands we felt out there were able to do. I mean, would you want to wear Snapple's logo, you know, on your T-shirts, or would you maybe rather wear a couple of lizards? I don't know. But they served us well, especially as we get into some of the marketing programs that we developed, especially with some of our alternative athletes. And Chris can talk to that in a little bit. And then finally, you know, this irreverent personality, if you will. Hopefully it was felt, again, maybe from some of those under-the-cap slogans, or if you met one of us out at some of the events that we did. We're regular people. You know, we didn't take ourselves too seriously, I think, and I think ultimately, given how we went to market, the end user and or consumer felt that and really felt a part of the brand. They helped build the brand, I think, and made it really what it was ultimately today. Talking about our some other interesting components that developed as we were rolling with SOBE. One is this healthy refreshment beverage category. This was something that we really used specifically for the trade. Didn't talk about that directly with our consumer audience. It just, I didn't think would relate to them directly. But when you're out there and you're choosing your path on how to bring a product to market, you do have to have a point of difference, and you got to make people feel a reason to have your brand or to have your product. So we did establish this healthy refreshment beverage category. It was a new category, and obviously we were the leaders. Shortly after, there was a ton of Me Too products that came out and tried to glom onto that. Products that are no longer in existence today, but there was a whole bunch that entered the market shortly after us trying to claim the same thing. We did have strong consumer appeal. Again, I think a lot of that appeal was driven by the lizards and the way we went to market. Again, it was so organic, it was so different, it was so unique that, like I was saying earlier, everyone felt a part of the brand. And by wearing shirts or wearing tattoos or basically involving themselves in the brand and our lizard logo, that really word of mouth was a big part of our success. As I talked about, once we were out there and the distributors were having success with the brand, word travels quick. There were a lot of imitators that came out from big brands to new startup brands, but fortunately for us, we continue to be the market leader and drive this new category. This is a product that we all got started with. Again, I think if you saw SOBE today, you would say it looks a whole heck of a lot different now that Pepsi has taken over and basically turned it into a water company. But we spent a lot of time and a lot of hours and a lot of pressure to develop this glass package that really, I think, was an incredibly unique brand element. In developing this package with Anchor Glass, a company down in Florida. I can't tell you how many times they said, we can't do it, 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 we can't do it. It was like, guys, shut up already, just do it. So we finally got those guys to build this mold for us. And hence, again, the unique, I think, look and feel of SOBE was born. To be a brand leader and to drive a new category, we said, hey, we've got to be the first in each one of these beverage categories from a healthy refreshment positioning standpoint if we want to continue to grow and really drive that market share. So while we started with SOBE Black Tea, this was the one that we brought down to that trade show and was beverage of the show, we quickly proliferated into all different drink and beverage types. SOBE Energy, which was our #1 selling product, was a fruit-based drink. But again, we're not telling you that it's tropically flavored. We didn't name the juice blends that were in it. We just called it Energy, and it had its energy package. From there, I don't know if you guys remember, you probably don't, a product that Snapple introduced called Whippersnapple. I think it lasted maybe for a year, if that, but it had this kind of Carvel ice cream type bottle with we call it a condom sleeve label, a shrink sleeve label that went over the top of it. And they thought they were kitschy and funny and cool with their little names. It was a yogurt-based product, a dairy-based product. So we said, hey, that's interesting. We think it's got great flavor appeal. It had a lot of flavor impact. What can we do differently? How can we SOBEize it? We said, hey, let's come up with this line of lizard drinks. We called it our lizard line. We launched a product, I don't know if you guys remember this either, called SOBE Liz Blizz. It was actually, you remember that?
Oh, dude, I'm wondering why you guys got it out.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was
selling in California, at least.
No, Liz Blizz and rum was one of the great drinks.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with this now.
It was a great mixer. But yeah, it was this white-looking liquid. It was pina colada flavored with our lizard that we broke out of the dueling lizard mold and put him on a snowboard. And we launched it. I think it was we brought it to the distributor network that we had in September. We sold out of our first whole. We pre-sold it, so we sold out of our first big run. I think like in 2 days. All the distributors wanted it. We did a customized T-shirt. If you bought a trailer load, you'd get like a case of T-shirts to bring out to the trade, to the field, to the store owners, if you will. And that was the birth of our lizard line. And from there, we went into SOBE Tsunamis. We had Lizard Lightning, I think, as well. We had all of these alternative athletes almost endorse these products, and it was a huge hit. And shortly after that, Whippersnapple was no more.
Billy, where did the nurses come into play? Were they? Yeah,
exactly. I'll work to that. And then real quick, what we did is for diet products, we felt that diet really wasn't a SOBE thing. So we said, hey, after again, we SOBEize the diet Snapples or the diet fruit drink markets. We created a product called SOBE Lean. And used natural sweeteners. So it was the first non-artificial sweetener product, I believe, of its kind. And that did okay. To what Len was talking about, we know what Red Bull is, right? And I think everybody's had a Red Bull, or at least tried a Red Bull, probably on multiple occasions. But Red Bull actually just came to the U.S. as SOBE was gaining traction. And again, the way we went to market, we really wanted to take over what they call the Visicooler, so those cold boxes that you walk up to in gas marts or delis. You want 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 shelves, hopefully someday your full refrigerator branded to your product. Well, Red Bull came in with this little 8-ounce can. We're saying, how are these guys going to make it? I mean, didn't know much about them. So they obviously quickly showed us what they can do, and we said, hey, we got to jump on this. This energy drink market, you know, is booming. So we said, all right, how can we compete with Red Bull? Well, let's go SOBE Adrenaline Rush. You know, those guys have their little Red Bull vans. They're out there, you know, they're hitting the bars. They have a real nice social marketing program. So we said, man, shit, this is going to be tough. So we said, all right, Adrenaline Rush. Let's get these great nurses, you know, again, for our on-premise and bar scenes, put them in a little latex, you know, grab these huge hypodermic needles, and let's fill it up with Adrenaline Rush. So as you're walking around the bars, you know, who wants a shot of adrenaline? And definitely
as taught in the Babson courses, of course.
attracted some attention, and quickly we became the #2 selling energy drink, if you will. And then finally from there, we said, hey, Gatorade, obviously, as we all know, is the preeminent sports drink, or the mass market sports drink. I think they've trended to be more now of a refreshment beverage. You know, they're used at multiple occasions, not just athletics. We said, how could we SOBEize the sports drink market? So spent a lot of time and money developing this unique bottle. We actually had a mountain bike racing team that was wearing our lizards, and we worked with them and the cyclist designers to design an actual sports bottle that you could hot fill. Not to get too technical, but if you hot fill something that actually tastes better, you don't have to put any preservatives in it to make it taste a little funky. And no one had ever done that before. So we worked hard to create a package that was functional, could fit in a bike cage, and could be used obviously at any athletic occasion, and it had multiple ingredients in it to help with joints, muscles, and cardio. So it was a functional type sports drink that we're bringing to the mass market. And then finally, something that never really caught on at the time, we had this line that we called SOBE Essentials. This was really supplement levels of herbs and nutrients. So, you know, SOBE, I would say, was a little bit light on that, more refreshment focused. SOBE Essentials were more based on real supplement levels of products. More health food, I would say, targeted. Again, a great unique package we developed. I think the product looked good. It unfortunately didn't get to get a long shelf life given the Pepsi acquisition, but another unique concept.
Well, the reason we did that, though, was we just wanted to really, we started to talk about the portfolio of beverages. We just didn't want anybody else to get in this segment of the business that would turn out to be any good. We didn't care if we failed on these segments. We just wanted to get into them first, just because the first in is a big advantage in some of this stuff when you've got momentum rolling for your brand. So those SOBE Essentials, we'd be criticized sometime in the trade by saying, you know, SOBE just has fairy dust in there relative to our herbal content. And they were, with the exception of Adrenaline Rush, they were probably pretty right in the sports system. So the bulk of our business was just a lot of fairy dust relative to our herbs. And we figured, hey, let's do one where you really get a supplement dose, like if you bought some at a GNC. And, you know, as you might expect, that wasn't a refreshment beverage, and it just didn't make it.
So again, a full spectrum of products that we ended up developing to protect the brand and grow our healthy refreshment product line, if you will.
The other thing that really helped us, and I'll talk about the marketing part before, is each one of these products were provided a certain beverage for different tastes. So when you go and do a sampling, which we'll talk about, there was always something that somebody liked, which made a big difference.
Absolutely. From a sales standpoint, the easiest way for us to penetrate the market, and this really came from John Bello, his experience working at Arizona Iced Tea, was the easiest way to penetrate a market was to go through these independent distributors. So to go basically store to door, selling this product. In order to do that efficiently, you need to hire and sign on all these independent distributors. And unlike the pet food business, it was like, man, you had a distributor at every corner. I mean, the way they carved up certain markets, certain counties, certain towns. I mean, there's just a plethora of distributors in a small geographic area. And like anything, there's some really good ones and there's some really, really bad ones. But the key with these guys is you had to be on them. They're definitely not brand builders. They are obviously needed to get your product on the shelf, but they're going to give you one chance and one chance only. And we learned that with our South Beach beverage experience. So we ended up building a network of over 300 independent distributors nationwide. And again, these are folks that only want to deliver product. They don't want to build brands. So you got to make sure that they're thinking about your product. You got to make sure that they're pushing your product. You got to make sure that they're talking your product. In order to do that, we had to hire a huge sales force, or build a huge sales force, I would say, to basically micromanage these distributors so that your brand always was top of mind. And that wasn't an easy effort. And actually, it was something that was great for John. John was one of those guys that was just relentless. And he actually had the sales team reporting to him and just did a great job managing these distributors. From there, which was great, is we were able to create a lot of local marketing programs, because again, I think when we went to market, it was very viral from an in-your-face touch point standpoint, very interactive type marketing. It allowed us to come into local markets and really make an impact quite quickly. So we worked with our distributors to do that. And then finally, the needing a lawyer point. When we first got started, like anything else, you just do whatever it takes to get the job done. But as you start to gain momentum and you start to see that you've got a real business on here, you really need tight service agreements with these distributors. So that was something that we really needed to do. We had basically different contracts with different distributors given when we signed them on. So when the time is right, it's really good to have smart legal counsel to be able to come in and just make sure that all the service agreements that you have with your distributors are in order, especially if you're looking to flip the brand at some point in time. There could be a lot of lost money there if it's not tidied up.
On the other hand, Billy, if you're not being sued, you're not being aggressive enough, right?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, once you're getting sued, you know that you've got the attention of the competition. So it's always good to have a lawyer, obviously, on staff to be able to help you fight through that, but not be a sales prevention team as well.
Yeah. And we actually had Arizona. Okay, I actually tried to get an injunction against you guys also.
Absolutely, yeah. They were not only a brand, but they also had distribution. So it was an interesting dynamic in some markets, because what happened was Arizona was, I wouldn't say a bully, but they were very strong in how they sort of mandated or dictated to their distributors. And at the time we were getting really hot, they were actually pulling out a lot of distributors in California. So that allowed us to really come in and fill that void that Arizona left out. And as they saw what we were doing, they then started to build into their service agreements. You can't take SOBE if you're going to carry our brand. So trying to leverage their relationships and trying to leverage their brand power, which ultimately didn't damage us at all. Want to talk marketing? Sure.
The average age of the male audience of our products was 18 to 24. The goal for us from the marketing perspective was to really get high quality brand awareness. We wanted to get our customers involved and interact with the brand. We wanted them to identify with the product, and we really wanted to have them have a strong relationship with the product as well. And to do that, we had our grassroots marketing efforts. As you can see, that's one of our first buses. Certainly something that you could probably see from the moon. And we did have a lot of people ask us, are there any lizards in there, any kind of animals? This was certainly something that I personally really enjoyed being involved with. I had a chance to drive that bus actually down to the Daytona 500 and sample there, and it was a great experience. As well as drove it to Super Bowl in Atlanta, where there was an incredible ice storm down there. So it was very.
You could take over an event with that thing, which was so great. I mean, anywhere you went. When we first started out, we didn't obviously have a large marketing fund, so you couldn't really get many event-type sponsorships. But with a bus like that, it really didn't matter. So Chris and the team could go down to this point and just freaking tailgate at the Super Bowl until you got kicked out, hand out a bunch of samples, hand out a bunch of T-shirts, have some flyers in that marketplace on where the product was sold. I mean, it was just really fly, touch, go type marketing, but really, really resonated with our audience.
Yeah, and it was in a legitimate way. We were the marketing department. We were our own customer, and we really were able to make a great connection with the customer. And it wasn't like, to Billy's point, our customers weren't going to really wear like a Snapple T-shirt. It was fucking lame. They wanted to wear lizards. They wanted to wear something that was interesting, something that was relevant. And so we had our Love Bus bus there. We had quite a few love buses throughout the U.S.
We ended up with 10, I think, didn't we, or something
Yeah,
like that?
and we had an armored car, which also was great to drive. And the local events were, you know, a great way to connect with the customer.
So Chris, what you're really saying is also that you gotta use out-of-the-box thinking. Everybody else has got much more money, et cetera, therefore you've gotta use what you've got, and it's gotta be different than anybody else. If it's the same, you can't win.
Yeah, because a lot of the fancier companies, the Cokes and the Pepsis, I mean, they want to get these real high-end vehicles. You know, they'd buy, back then they'd buy Hummers for a reasonable amount of money and decorate them. And, yeah, this Stopey bus that we bought, it had been a bus that obviously was used, and the thing had been painted pink when we bought it, but we got that bus for like $8,000, and then we spent a few thousand more getting it all decorated and put that platform on top where you'd come up and, you know, you could have a group up there singing or doing whatever you wanted, dancing or mooning or just about anything off of the top. And again, it didn't cost a lot of money to do. And when you got your drivers there, you know, you could just have a driver, or you could get some guy with a big green afro wig. I haven't put the green afro wig on, but just, you know, anything to get attention. And when you're selling a beverage like this, to Chris's point before, where you've got a young target audience who are basically males who, you know, don't give a shit about very much. I mean, they just want to have a little bit of fun, and it's just like perfect. You know, and you get a whole fleet of those things. You can get a fleet of buses for what you would buy, you know, 2 Hummers for. And the Hummers are just boring.
What's so crazy is at the time we were doing this, there was basically 0 social media. I mean, none, nothing. Imagine being able to have these guys tweet or do something to like.
It was barely
buses
email,
were going
right?
across. Yeah, we just email, and SOBE was, I think, its 3rd year email. It's like, what? Are you kidding me? It's crazy, but no, it was fun.
We also had, we call them UTCs, but under the cap slogans, just really irreverent, you know, that Snapple had just dumb little information about just stupid things, or Nantucket Nectars would have, oh yeah, Nantucket, you know, there's this. And nobody gave a shit about that. So we wanted to make people laugh, we wanted to make a funny connection, a different connection. Why gum a Gumby when you can lick a lizard? Just different stuff, make people laugh, so that we thought that was important.
Okay. From a timing point of view, because we want to start asking some questions,
Sure.
where are we?
Sure.
Let's wrap this up at about 5.
We got it.
Cool. Most of the other companies, more specifically larger companies like Coke and Pepsi, they would sponsor an event. And what we ended up doing was we would sponsor the athletes that would win. But one of the greatest things about these athletes, or the whole sponsorship, was guys like Biker Shock. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of him, but he was an innovator of downhill skateboarding. Andy McDonald he's still relevant, one of the greatest skateboarders in the world. We had a co-branded mountain bike racing team, the SOBE Cannondale team. And we also ended up having a lizard lacrosse team, MLL. So, but these athletes came to us and wanted sponsorship. We said, hey, you know, we don't have a ton of money like the other guys do, but we have our drinks that we can give you, and we can put our lizards on your leathers or on your equipment. It just made a huge difference. And to the point I said before, is, you know, we didn't sponsor the whole event. We sponsored the people that won, and we just made a great connection with our customers because they wanted to be like the people winning these extreme events.
More authentic way, I would say, right?
Yeah, definitely. In a way that people could relate to. We had our lizard gear, which was incredibly important. People could collect 3 separate caps, send in $5, and we'd send them a t-shirt. That grew into just a crazy fun success. People loved wearing the shirts. It was a great marketing tool for us. People would wear them all over. And the lizard made a great connection for little kids all the way up to older people. So that was great. Ended up having SOBE.com, which is a great way to, obviously, as we all know, when you go to the website, when you want to learn about a particular brand. That was big. We had radio, local promotions, and trade tie-ins. So that's basically most of what we did for marketing, but it really wanted to push people into a legitimate message and to learn about our brand in a way that was effective.
Just on the radio, what we tried to do was get a little extra leverage with the radio and so on. We would go in, you'd buy 60-second radio spots, they're the most efficient to buy. And then we'd go out to the trade and we'd offer the trade, hey, if you give us a display for 2 weeks, for a month, we'll split our advertising with you, and so you give them free advertising that you were going to pay for anyway. Well, then if they give you a display, you basically pay for it when you sell in the extra product against the display. So looking to try and leverage everything that you do. And it's a thing we're doing now with television with Blue Buffalo Company that we'll talk about later. But to be able to try and leverage the trade-in, because the more space you get at retail, whether you display anywhere off the shelf where you'd normally be, where you get more exposure, will generally pay out very quickly.
Another important point is when you're doing marketing, I think customers really like it if you're somebody from the actual company, not a marketing company, giving out cheese or giving out samples, whatever. Because I was able to get some great ideas about new products, and it was a great way to interact with the customers.
The last slide here, guys, will just show you kind of how we built the business. So 1996, wow. This was when we had launched South Beach. That was the first full year. Sold 175,000 cases, a little over 2 million in rev. Didn't have many employees. One co-manufacturer, Stroh Brewing, had 15 distributors. And then when we flipped the switch to SOBE, you can just see how the brand really turboed. So, gosh, in 4 years, we were up at 20 million cases, 230 million in revenue, over 200 employees, 10 co-manufacturers, and over 300 distributors. So once we knew we had it, really was chasing the biz, which I know is unique. Was a lot of fun, but really kept us running. With that, we can take any questions.
Okay, let me just throw one question, and then you can go back. Okay. When Snapple sold to Quaker Oats, they pretty well screwed it up. So, did you see major changes when you sold SOBE to Pepsi, which is large corporate, etc. kind of thing? Is that?
Yeah, yes, one we have. I mean, I think that to go into a huge system like the Pepsi system, I don't think I realized it at the time. I mean, I didn't think they would change the face of the brand so dramatically, but I kind of get it now. I mean, logistically, they're a can and plastic company, and that's how they distribute throughout their network. We're a glass. I think our cases weighed 52 pounds, 24-pack. So it just didn't fit into their network. So I think anytime you make those types of just logistical changes, there's some brand equity that's lost.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just had a question about looking at, you said you had 7 or 8 ideas after SOBE and starting a new company, going to Blue Buffalo. What makes you decide to give up and move on versus, with South Beach, you decided that, it wasn't doing well, and you decided to reinvent it because you really believed in the idea and you wanted to go forward. So I guess just, if you have an idea, what made you decide to rebrand it and go forward with it versus you had 7 or 8 ideas between now and Blue Buffalo that you kind of passed on and changed what you were going after?
I think the difference is money. Back when we started SOBE, you had one kick at the cat, nobody had a lot of money. And if we didn't make this one work, we were screwed, basically. So we really had to stay with it. After we sold SOBE, we had money, and it was easy to get investors. And so as we started 4 or 5 different things, I mean, if it looked like one wasn't going to work, we weren't going to spend time digging around with it. We had some other options going. Back then it was no money, one option, and afterwards it was lots of money, lots of options. So that's the difference.
Okay. Next, please.
I'm from California also, so I remember growing up drinking SOBE from the original glass bottle. My question is, when you wanted to look into distributing towards the East Coast, what challenges did you face, and how did you see like a different target market or in terms of marketing? How was it?
From a marketing standpoint, it didn't change. We had the same template that we were executing regardless of what region of the country we were distributing in. From a distribution standpoint, it was a little bit different. The East Coast, I would say, was a little bit behind from an adoption standpoint, just from a distributor mentality than the West Coast. Plus, Snapple really had a firm grip on the East Coast, so we had to kind of penetrate the distribution network. And you start off, I would say, like in baseball, with the D-level group, where we wanted to get to the major leagues to work our way up, through the system. But eventually we did, and I think that is one thing, at least it was at the time, with the distributor network, that if you have something going, the buzz spreads pretty darn quick. I mean, everybody knows each other in the business. So I got something hot here, Joe. You got to check it out. So that helped us as well.
The other thing you do, though, is we got a manufacturer in the East, is shipping glass around, we just take all the profits out of your business. So those 10 manufacturers, that's as we expanded through the East, and you wanted to keep shortening that transportation line, if you will. So we really worked on a whole hub and spoke concept of where we produce, limit the transportation costs.
The other thing was also that it really was a war in the stores. We had to continue to keep in front of the distributors, keep them incentivized, keep them motivated, and let them know that we were going to be their future, and that made a huge difference.
Do you ever think back and say, wow, we should have kept the company, make it international, and then sell it for more? Or are you happy and you say, well, we sold it at the point that we should have, and
it's a gamble, right? I mean, you don't know. You don't know if you're going to plateau at some point. I mean, the growth is going to slow down. You just don't know exactly when. As Dad said earlier, I guess I was a young guy, so I didn't have a lot of money invested. I had a lot of sweat equity invested. But Dad and his team who pledged their houses and put their money on the line said, hey guys, we got an opportunity to cash out. Are you going to have it again? Let's cash out. So.
In retrospect, though, we sold too soon. When Vitamin Water sold, they got a much higher multiple than we did. So we did sell too soon, but money was money back then.
And then now you say to yourself, in your lifetime, how many chances are you going to have a $230 million revenue company, right? Chapter 2 coming up. Even
right.
better.
Buffalo's twice as big as that, so it's really cool.
I have a question. Regarding to, in respect to marketing, what percentage was invested into point of sales and what percentage was invested into advertising? What was your strategy?
Oh, shit, man. Yeah. We weren't that sophisticated. I don't know if I could actually break that down for you, Julie.
You also want to know whether the business plan also?
No,
we actually used the business plan for toilet paper. That's what you meant.
I would say initially, all of it was invested in point of sale, because that was, along with the bottle, that was our advertising. So we needed to support our distributors, and really literally the way you did that was a suitcase at different point of sale. Some you could put on the outside of the door, to the store, some you could put on the cold box, some you could put on the glide rack stickers. So I'd say 100% of that initially was invested in point of sale. And as we started to gain some revenue and momentum, then we got the bus going,